Gianni Pano, and they will be doing taps. I'd like to call Steve Petak. He's VFW Franscotti Post 1544 Commander. Steve, could you come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce Reverend Sousa. He's going to lead us in the invocation.
Let us remember the presence of God. O God of love and compassion and healing, look on us, people of many different faiths and traditions, who gather today for a day of appreciation and prayer for the 9/11 first responders. We ask you, in your goodness, to give eternal light and peace to those who died in service to others because of the 9/11 attacks on the United States. The heroic first responders, our firefighters, police officers, emergency service workers, and Port Authority personnel, along with all the innocent men and women who were victims of this tragedy, simply because their work or service brought them there on September 11, 2001. We ask you, in your compassion, to bring healing to those who, because of their presence there that day, suffered from injuries and illness. Heal too the pain of still grieving families and all who lost loved ones in this tragedy. Give them strength to continue their lives with courage and hope. We are mindful as well of those who suffered death, injury, and loss on the same day at the Pentagon in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Our hearts are on with theirs, as our prayer embraces their pain and suffering. God of peace, bring your peace to our violent world. Peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations of the earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. God of understanding, overwhelmed by the magnitude of this tragedy, we seek your light and guidance as we confront such terrible events. Grant that those whose lives were spared may live so that the lives lost there may not have been lost in vain. Comfort and console us, strengthen us in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign among nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
I was serving as the chief of the MBTA Transit Police at the time. Friday at 9 a.m. I entered my office here. The administrative staff glued to the television, an expression of disbelief and awe. as I began to watch the plane trades.
Can't hear you.
Okay, we're getting it. Nick,
Minutes later, we saw a second plane crash into the other tower. I turned and immediately activated the emergency response plan and transit police to protect the vast MBTA transit system. This plan was developed as we approached the millennium, the media celebrations and activities in 2000. This activation would include the deployment of 275 transit police officers, 4 bomb technicians with explosive detection canines, 14 SWAT officers, 12 police officers with canines. After establishing the command center, I made contact with the general manager of the MBTA, the governor's office, the Boston Police Commissioner, state police colonel, police chief and director at Logan Airport. While I was establishing these avenues of communication, my administrative assistant advised me that the plane had crashed into the Pentagon. And to my utter horror, disbelief, newscast began reporting before the plane crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after the passengers fought with the hijackers. As if all of these events were shocking enough, knowing that there were still people in the Twin Towers, along with the cadre of firefighters, police officers, EMTs, and other rescuers, to my total disbelief, we saw the first tower of the World Trade Center crumble and fall. And then shortly thereafter, the second tower crumbled and fell as the first one had. As the morning progressed, the governor summoned all the state-level public safety heads to meet in the Neva bunker out in Framingham, which is adjacent to the state police headquarters on Route 9. Given that most businesses and government agencies had shut down, traffic was at a gridlock, one end of the city to the other, and frankly, one end of the state. I was directed to pick up the Secretary of Transportation, the MTA General Manager of the State House. They were coming from the governor's office, so that they could ride with me to Framingham. We were followed by a state police cruiser that was transporting the Secretary of Public Safety and other key personnel from the Public Safety Office in Boston. As we proceeded to weave our way from the State House to the Mass Turnpike to go to Framingham, a car crashed into the state police cruiser at an intersection in Boston. So I now had 6 people in my cruiser, pretty compact, and we were weaving our way along the Mass Turnpike from Boston to Framingham, where we would stay at that bunker command center late into the night, going to take a cab and commence our work at 5 a.m. That following day, the afternoon of September 12th, the governor called for a meeting with key state administrators and public safety commission to be held at Logan International Airport in East Boston. I remember vividly getting out of my cruiser, and while walking with the command staff from the transit police and the Boston Police Commissioner, just how eerily silent it was at that airport, because President George Bush had ordered every plane around across the United States. I could hear a pin drop as we walked. I commented to them, the silence of death. The next several weeks and months, we were working 7 days a week, 5 a.m. to midnight, with 4 hours sleep. Across this great nation, people were mournfully sad. The sorrow for those who died and families that were shattered by these horrific acts of hate was clearly evident in every corner and segment of our society. Likewise, as the days wore on, the resilience and pride of America streamed to the forefront. In the United States, displays of flags could be found in every vehicle, building, and home. Displays of our courage, strength, and pride could be found in every American face. The attacks on 9/11 are the deadliest terrorist attack in the world's history, killing some 500 more than the attack on Pearl Harbor. These hateful terroristic actions resulted in 2,977 deaths of innocent people. I don't count the hijackers, they don't deserve it. They had a worldwide impact because in addition to the citizens of the United States, there were victims who were citizens of more than 90 countries. In New York alone, 2,700 deaths and more than 6,000 injured. While at the Pentagon, there were 125 deaths. In United Airlines Flight 93 crash in Sandersville resulted in 40 additional deaths. Also, these deaths included 343 firefighters in New York, 72 police officers in New York, 55 military personnel in Quebec. The impacts upon firefighters and police officers, EMTs and other rescuers, and site recovery workers such as construction, janitorial workers, continues to this day. As a result of the injuries sustained on 9/11 and their exposure to hazardous materials, as they fulfill their duties and responsibilities, trying to help and save others, and help rebuild New York City. In fact, since 2011, when the World Trade Center Health Monitoring Program started, there are more than 75,000 people registered for monitoring. More than 37,000 are registered in cities. More than 1,140 have died to illnesses connected to 9/11. Dire prediction is that the number of deaths resulting from 9/11 far eclipsed the number who perished on that fateful day. Prior to coming to the Milford Police Department, Robbie served as a police officer in the NYPD. He was one of the many first responders who was running toward danger, while others understandably were running from the danger. The World Trade Center on 9/11. As one of the more than 75,000 who were registered in the World Trade Center Health Monitoring Program, Robbie goes to New York City on a regular schedule to go medical tests. Please join me in recognizing and thanking Robbie for his great service as a police officer. By saying that I'm as sad today as I was 17 years ago. Yet I have even more pride in my fellow Americans as a result of seeing those firefighters and police officers risk everything, their very lives, to help others. Please remember those who perished on that fateful day. Please remember those who have died or continue to struggle with health conditions as a result of the events of 9/11. May God bless each and all of them in this great country, the United States of America.
Hi, good morning. I'll be brief. First, I want to thank everybody for putting this day on. As far as my role in 9/11, I can honestly say that I was a witness. Years ago, I would sit and talk with J.D. Antonio, one of my biggest inspirations. J.D. Antonio was a firefighter in Milford for a long time, and he was a big part of my life, and me becoming an EMT and then a paramedic and eventually a police officer. And Jay used to say to me, when you go to these big calls, there's three things, Robbie. Your initial response, what you do when you're there, and the impact that you made afterward. Well, as the time passed after September 11th, I felt, what was my purpose there? I don't have any great stories of rescue for you, but I was a witness. As I look in the mirror and try to find my place in that, I'm very humbled to be a witness to that day. Because that was the first time I was ever a witness to such hate, such horror, and unfathomable destruction against our country. But I was also so fortunate to bear witness to the strength and the common fiber that binds us all as Americans. We know what it is like to be a true American. The firefighters, the police officers, the other first responders that raced in to help people selflessly, well, that's America. That's the fiber that binds us all. So, on this September 11th, I have my ball cap on, doesn't fit like I used to. This is the same hat that I wore 17 years ago. This is the only time that I wear this hat, is on September 11th. But for this year, let's not be divided by those small, petty differences. Remember that we're all Americans. So I ask politicians on both sides of the aisle to remember that America was always great. Remember the common thread that binds you all, and don't get hung up on the small differences that tend to divide us. God bless America and me.
Thank you all for being here this morning. I was sitting home last night and I was wondering, what was I going to talk about? And I said, I'm going to talk from the heart. I'm going to talk from the heart as I always try to do. The police chief and I were in a meeting one night and somebody made a remark. How safe do I feel in this community? I have to tell you, I put my head on my pillow every single night and I feel very safe because of these fine people over here that take care of us on a daily basis. I'm going to tell you a personal story. One night I called 911 for my wife, and before I could get to the front door, Rescue 1 was pulling up in front of my driveway. And in they came with their big bags, attending to my wife. And one of the firemen turned and knocked the drapes off one of the windows. And so I looked, and I've got one fireman attending to my wife, or an EMT or paramedic, and I got another one hanging the drapes up. And I'm like, he's an interior decorator. And then in my house comes, any of you who know Gina, she's a policewoman here in town. I wouldn't tangle with her on my best day. My poor wife, full of fear, and she said to the paramedic, she said, fellas, back off. And she got on the ground with my wife, and she said, Mrs. Walsh, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. We've got the road blocked off, the ambulance is outside, and we're gonna get you out of here. That's what we have in this community. And I can't speak for other communities, but I can speak for my community. And I can tell you I am very proud to stand here as a selectman in your community and represent you and tell you that on a daily basis we continue to provide to you those services. If you just witnessed 2 minutes ago, there was a call that came in and two firemen got up and exited immediately to the call of duty, And so when people want to criticize policemen, they want to criticize firemen, walk in their shoes. I had a conversation with the chief one day, and he said to me, Mike, it's easy to lock somebody up. It's a lot harder to talk them off the roof. This is a community. He said, we have a responsibility to take care of one another. The chief brought into the selectmen's meeting the 6 new police officers, all from Milford, born and brought up. Only one had just left and bought a house in Bellingham. All from Milford, all understand the culture, understand the neighborhoods, understand what makes this community tick. That's what makes this community so great, so great. It's all of us working together to continue to make this community great. And it is. It is. I spoke at the Legion banquet a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at the young ball players. And I said, you will end up somewhere. You will end up somewhere in this country of ours, or this world of ours. Don't ever forget to give back. Get involved and give back, because you can make a difference. Truly, truly can. So again, I want to say to our fire and our police departments, I'm very proud to stand here as a selectman representing you. I couldn't be more proud of the job that every single one of you do every single day. And we're so fortunate to have all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
This next guest has to leave, Sheriff Lou. But before I say a few words about him, Brian and I were having a building committee meeting, I don't know, it must have been 7 years ago. We're upstairs in Town Hall. There's only 6 of us, and the elevator door rang the bell. And the doors opened up, and this giant was in there, 6'9", 6'10". So he comes over to us, and he says, "Hey, can I say a few words?" And he had dungarees on, and ripped up shirt or something, and says, "I'm running for sheriff, and if I win, I'll be the best sheriff you've ever had." And we said, look at that, look at that. He's done a tremendous job. The sheriff's been very involved, accessible to Town Hall, Police Department. He's helped out the town with different programs and assistance. He's developed very innovative programs. It's my pleasure. My pleasure to present. My pleasure to present to you Sheriff Lou Evangelos.
I think Mike thought he's the top of the height that can leave the mic in here. I'll put it up here. And Dino, I want to mention, you built the story when I ran for sheriff. He said I was 6'9" or 6'10". Well, the burden of sheriff must be weighing me down. I'm only 6'7" now. So I just wanted to point that out. But I want to thank, Susan, everyone here who's been recognized already for acknowledging this extraordinary day in American history and making sure that we do never forget it. And all the speakers before me have frankly said almost everything that really needs to be said. But I did want to, beyond thanking you for helping us remember this day, as certainly we all do, but it became readily apparent that after the horrible events of 9/11, I think it all kind of crept on us in our generation, like, wow, we remember our parents and our grandparents talking about the day of infamy, 12/7/1941. And suddenly you kind of knew, like, oh my God, we have our moment that we'll never forget as well. And today really does represent this. Anything today is for, and it's already been mentioned, Robbie, thank you for mentioning it. I think we all, if there's anything we can capture from 9/11 that we can remember today and every single day if we can, but that moment when we all knew that we were Americans first. That we stood together as a nation and we knew it with all our differences, and the bottom line was we were all Americans. And today, if nothing else, we remind ourselves that that's who we are as a people. And sure, we have ebbs and flows in politics and all that, and I know the people around this table, Democrats, Republicans, we all love and respect each other. We do, but this is a day to remind ourselves that we are Americans first. And just thinking about that day, I was thinking as I was listening to the speakers about Americans first. You remember, to give you an example of how it was, do you remember we sang New York, New York in Fenway Park right after that? Do you remember we did that? Think about that for a minute. I mean, nobody even hesitated. We were so proud to sing New York, New York. Now, we never would have done it before 9/11. But my God, after that happened, it made you realize it didn't matter at all. We knew who we were as people. And please, not only on 9/11, remind ourselves of this every day, but if you get a chance, I've been to Ground Zero. Get a chance to feel that. As Robbie, thank you for being here, really putting a personal experience onto this incredible day. But to go to Ground Zero, and my daughter went to Fordham University in New York City, and I visited her many times there, and it's amazing how impactful this day has been on individual lives that continue. And I'll never forget just passing a small memorial. It was just on the side of the campus. It was kind of down a little walkway. So one day I just happened to walk by it, and it listed the victims of 9/11 that were Fordham graduates. One university. There were over 100 people on that. There were over 100 people on that one plaque from that one university. That's how impactful this has been for individuals. So I'm so proud to be here today. I'm so thankful as sheriff to be here and also to be part of this recognition of our first responders. And as was mentioned, and it's important to always remember this, our first responders who are all here today, that day and every day, when there's a situation where the human instinct is to run and to flee, it's the first offenders who have the exact opposite training to go in. And it was on 9/11, it was exemplified, maybe better in the history of this country, but don't forget it happens every single day in this country. And I want to thank them for that. And if you get a round of applause for them, thank you for going in there every single day and looking at the hearts of your faces. So I just want to leave you leave with one other point, and that is this, and many of you probably aren't aware of this, but I just want to mention it because it's important to this region. And that the governor appointed me to be on the board of Massport. Massport runs Logan Airport, Worcester Airport, which have had some great news coming out of, Port of Boston. We have real estate holdings. It was an honor to be chosen to serve as a governor's appointment on Massport. And this year I was elected chairman of Massport. Now the reason I tell you that story is that Massport, as you know, Logan Airport was one of the airports where the terrorists took advantage of, flew those planes out of there, and that's what led to 9/11. But I want to assure you, we can never promise it will never happen again, but we can promise that we do everything in our power to prevent it from happening again. And we start every meeting at Massport, and one of the first updates we get every time is the security updates. We work with the FBI, the state police, our own police department, to make sure that we're doing everything possible. We have drills we do annually to deal with terrorism. I just want you to know when you're dealing with Logan Airport and Massport today, we have 3 priorities. Number 1 is security, number 2 is security, and number 3 is security. And that's how every member of that board feels. So we don't forget where this day came from. Part of it was right here in our home state. And I know as a member of Massport, we do everything. So thank you so much for recognizing this day. It's extraordinary. I'm so honored to be here. Unfortunately, I do have to run. I have somebody waiting for me with a meeting at the jail. But I just pray to God for this country, of course, and I pray to God that we never have to have this happen again. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sheriff Luke. This next person is very busy. Senator Fat Man is always here. He represents 16 towns in his district. He's a hard worker. He's a good public servant. And I think he's become a good friend of the town of Milford. Senator Fat Man.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First, let me begin with my profound thanks to all of our police officers, our firefighters, our first responders, our chiefs, for your service to not just Milford, but to our state and to our nation. 17 years ago, on September 11th, this day, that was half my life. I'm 34 years old today. And when I think about the world in which I've grown up in, become a man in, sitting next to my daughter at 5:15 in the morning watching Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, I thought about the things that I took for granted. How I have the privilege of doing that every single day in the morning as part of my everyday routine. That I get to pick up a little baby boy, 4 months old, cuddle him and feed him a bottle while I watch my wife get ready for work. And I thought today, when that was happening, about the people who 17 years ago went through that same experience, no idea they weren't coming home, that they may not see their little girl, they may not hold their little boy. And many of those people don these uniforms that sit before us here today. They had no idea when they woke up 17 years ago what was going to happen and the heroism that was going to be required of them. We've talked today about how America is a great nation. And someone once pointed out to me, in the course of world history, there's been a lot of great nations. But we describe America as exceptional. And the reason why America is exceptional is because America is good. And America is good because of the people in its nation. And when Americans cease to be good, Americans will cease to be great. Sergeant Tessino made this point. And I will tell you that the reason why we are here today, in honor and remembrance of all that the first responders, the police officers, and our firefighters do for us, it is a reflection upon not just American greatness and American exceptionalism. It is a reflection on what we should never take for granted, which is our very lives, the love we share with people every single day, and a profound thanks for living in the greatest nation that's ever been known in the world. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for having us here today. And Robbie, absolutely, about putting partisanship aside. America has always been great. Thank you.
I think all of us have very vivid memories of that morning on September 11th. And we have stories, too, that all of us can relate to. My cousin, Link Murray, who is my Uncle Joe's oldest son, at the time worked down in the World Trade Center. And I didn't know this, obviously, during the day. And it was sometimes afterwards when I saw Link, and he told me about what happened that day. So he went to work, and he was going to enter the building just as he always does, at probably, I don't know what time it was, 7 or 8 in the morning. And he said for some reason it didn't feel right. He didn't feel like he had to go to work that day. And he did not enter the World Trade Center and instead turned around. And before he could leave the city, the airplane struck the building where he would have been. He didn't return to his house, I think, for 5 days. He stayed in the city and just volunteered and helped with all the carnage. Personally, I was taking my youngest daughter to kindergarten at the time. It was a beautiful, sunny morning. I had to run up to the Milford Court first, and then down to Brookside. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I had the radio on, I think like a lot of us did, and heard these events unfolding. First, people thought it was a tragic accident, and then it became clear that it was something more than that. And I was newly elected as a selectman. I got elected in April of that year, and the calls started coming in from my town administrator at the time. He was trying to reach out to all of us. I served on the board with Dino at the time, and I'm sure Dino remembers this very well, Sal Semino at the time. And we were thinking about what to do in Milford, what we needed to do to secure our facilities. And believe it or not, we had the headquarters of the National Guard here in Milford. And they didn't have one pistol to defend themselves. So we had to make the determination to get our police force up to provide protection to the headquarters of the Massachusetts National Guard. Because if you think back on that time, it was total confusion, it was total uncertainty. No one knew what was going to be dropping next, where it was coming from. And we did that. And I think if something positive comes from that day, and we must take something positive from it, I think it's the opportunity with days like this, where we recognize and thank and pay our respect to first responders. It wasn't always like that. I think police and firemen were sort of taken for granted. Yes, they had a job to do and they did their job. And it doesn't really affect me. They deal with bad people and fires and that kind of stuff. But 9/11 brought it home to all of us. If tragic events like that could strike people who are working in their everyday life, not creating any situation, just trying to go to work for their family, then tragic events can strike me. And who was there to protect me? The police and fire. And so we can pay this respect and this recognition in a lot of different ways. And this morning is one of them, and this is something that all of us should do. For public servants, I think that we have a larger role. And for 16 years as a member of the Board of Selectmen with Dino DeBartolomeus, we tried to support the police and fire in this community every way we could, making sure that they had the proper training, the proper equipment, and a number of firefighters and officers had particular personal situations, and we always stepped to the plate to help out those in Milford because that was our job. And personally, I look at the role of the first responder in two ways. There's the professional aspect, the job, And my obligation is to make sure that they have the resources, the training, and the equipment to do that job. But I also have to understand that they're people. They have personal lives. They have families. They have wives. They have children. Well, guess what? Some of the events that they deal with can be overwhelming personally, and they need help also. So in this new role, I'm finishing up my first term as the state representative here in Milford. I'm learning a lot, but I'm learning also that we need to continue that support for our first responders on the state level. So I'm proud to be able to say that I was able to support increased funding for industrial washing machines because some communities don't have the resources that we have here in Milford, and fire departments need these to get the hazardous materials off of their suits. I was able to support increased funding through a fee on rental cars, for training, for police. I was able to support a bill for firefighters who contract cancer. Now it will be presumptively considered as part of the job. And I was able to support a bill to provide confidential professional counseling for our first responders as they try to deal with these tragic events. So all of us are here to help and support our first responders, and all of us can do it in our own special ways. And gentlemen and ladies, that's some of the ways that I've tried to support you, and I will continue to support you throughout the course of your careers as you try and do your jobs. And let me reiterate what the Senator said. Thank you very much for what you do every day and for what you continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We have a lot of people in the audience. I'd just like to recognize a few people. They do a lot for us on a daily basis. First is the town administrator, Rick Villani, and he's here with about 15 department heads, and I have to say that's a record. It's great to have everybody here. We appreciate what you do for us, and we'd like to have you here always. We're always here to assist our seniors in every possible way. Just a few people, like if I could just mention their names, John Pillar, our veterans agent. He's the one that provides all the fit flags. We have Bill Tooley, the fire chief, Mark Nelson, deputy fire chief, Chris Pillar, Charles Bodie, our new town council, and Rick has told me that he's gained about 10 pounds over the past 2 weeks, so I guess he likes Milford. So thank you to all of you for all the work, all the assistance that you provide to us on a daily basis. This one person, our district attorney, Joe Early, was called to Fitchburg this morning for a criminal situation, so he was not able to be here today. But I just want to say a few words on behalf of this individual, because he's a dedicated public servant. His dad was a fine congressman from Milford for many years. Joe's always been accessible. He's a true friend to Milford, and I mean that. Joe has a tremendously close working relationship with Chief O'Loughlin and the police department, and he's no question the best district attorney that Milford has ever had. So we want to thank Joe for all his service. Just a couple of more minutes and we'll be done. I certainly want to thank everybody for coming here today as we pay respect and remember 9/11. Sue Clark and her dedicated and hardworking staff, they do a superb job in assisting our seniors and disabled with progressive programs every single day. We're adding more programs, we're doing more things, we're trying to find out how we can better serve the seniors, and that all, comes from Sue Clark and her dedicated staff. This is truly the best senior center in Central Mass, no question about it. Thanks to all the volunteers and friends that we have, over 200 strong. So can we give all those people a round of applause? So 9/11, I was thinking last night, and I don't think there was one article in the Milford Daily News today. It should have been on the front page, but it wasn't. We should pray daily for our valiant and courageous police and fire personnel. The sacrifices that you heard today from the chief, Rob Tazzino and all that, We thank you for our services, and for your sacrifices on a daily basis. And when we see you, the simple thing that we can say is thank you. Just acknowledge that, shake your hand, and just say thank you for all the work that you do in making us safe every single day. And we certainly appreciate, and God bless all of you. Now we'll have Reverend Souza, who will lead us in the benediction, and then the program will conclude. Thank you.
I ask you, all of you, to not only support our first responders, police, and fire, but also to pray for them constantly, every day, in our personal prayers. So I started today praying for the ones who lost their lives. We want to pray now for those who are here. Blessed are you, Lord God of mercy, who through your Son gave us a marvelous example of charity and the great commandment of love for one another. Send down your blessing on these your servants who so generously devote themselves to helping others. Grant them courage when they are afraid, wisdom when they must make quick decisions, strength when they are weary, and compassion in all their work. When the alarm sounds and they are called to aid both friend and stranger, let them faithfully serve you and their neighbor. We ask this through Christ the Lord. Amen. May Almighty God bless you, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. God bless America.